Have you ever felt trapped in a conversation where someone twists your words, plays the victim, or subtly controls the situation to suit their needs? That's the art of manipulation. But what happens when you remove the fuel from the fire, when you go completely silent on a manipulator? Silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a statement, a strategy, and most importantly, a way to reclaim your power. Manipulators thrive on reactions, whether it's guilt-tripping, gaslighting, or passive-aggressive tactics. Their ultimate goal is control. But when you refuse to engage, something unexpected happens. They lose their grip. Silence forces them to sit in their own discomfort, to face the reality that their tactics no longer work. At first, they might escalate, trying harder to provoke a response. But when they're met with nothing but silence, their frustration grows. And that's where the shift happens. Suddenly, they are the ones questioning their control. Silence forces them to realize that they are losing their hold on you. It sends a message louder than any argument ever could. You are no longer playing their game. But be warned, going silent on a manipulator comes with its own set of reactions. Some will lash out, others will retreat, and a few will even try to switch to a different tactic to regain control. Understanding what happens next is key to standing your ground. So, what can you expect when you decide to go silent on a manipulator? Let's break it down. The moment a manipulator senses your silence, their first reaction is usually panic. Manipulation thrives on engagement, whether it's your anger, guilt, or even attempts to explain yourself. When you suddenly remove that engagement, it sends them into a state of uncertainty. They're used to controlling the flow of communication, bending conversations to serve their agenda. But now, there's nothing to work with, and that terrifies them. At first, they might try small provocations, subtle jabs, passive-aggressive remarks, or guilt-inducing statements designed to break your silence. "Oh, I guess you just don't care anymore," they might say, fishing for a reaction. Or they'll play the victim. "I don't know what I did to deserve this." These are baited hooks meant to pull you back into their game. And if you take the bait, they win. But here's the secret. The more they panic, the more their mask starts to sleep. They might ramp up their tactics, sending a flood of messages, calling repeatedly, or even roping in mutual acquaintances to get to you. This isn't concern, it's desperation. A manipulator losing control is like a gambler on a losing streak. They double down, hoping to regain power, but by staying silent, you're setting a boundary they cannot cross. The key is not to flinch. When you hold your silence, you force them to confront something they're not prepared for, a version of you they can no longer manipulate. And that is when their frustration starts turning into something else. Anger. Ready for section 3/10. Once the manipulator realizes their initial attempts to regain control aren't working, frustration sets in. This is when their behavior can shift from subtle to aggressive. Silence to them feels like rejection, and manipulators hate rejection. They don't just want your attention, they need it to fuel their sense of dominance. When you go silent, it's like cutting off their oxygen supply, and their reaction can be explosive. This phase is where they might lash out, sending long-winded texts filled with accusations, calling you selfish, cold, or uncaring. They'll try to guilt-trip you, framing your silence as cruelty. "Wow, so you're really just ignoring me like I never mattered?" This is designed to stir your emotions, to make you feel like the villain. But in reality, they are the ones struggling with the fact that they can no longer control you. In some cases, they might even turn to insults or aggression, trying to provoke you into breaking your silence with a defensive response. They'll use phrases like, "I always knew," you were like this, or you're proving exactly why no one trusts you. These statements are meant to break your resolve, to trigger your emotions so that you react. And the moment you do, they regain the upper hand. This is their test. If you give in, they learn that their escalation works. But if you stay firm, if you refuse to engage, something fascinating happens. They start losing interest. Manipulators crave a reaction, and when none comes, they begin to feel powerless. They start realizing that their tactics are failing. And when a manipulator senses failure, they often move to their next phase, the guilt trap. When anger doesn't work, manipulators often shift to their next most powerful weapon, guilt. If attacking you didn't break your silence, they'll try another angle, making you feel sorry for them. This is where they morph into the victim, portraying themselves as misunderstood, heartbroken, or even devastated by your silence. They'll send messages like, "I can't believe you would do this to me. I guess I was never important to you after all. I'm struggling so much, and you just disappeared." These lines are carefully crafted to trigger your empathy. They know that if they can make you feel guilty, they might be able to lure you back into a conversation. And once you respond, even if it's just to explain yourself, they've succeeded in breaking your silence. Some manipulators take it even further by pretending to be emotionally or physically unwell. They'll hint at feeling depressed, lost, or even suggest that they need help. They might say, "I don't know how to handle this," or "I just feel so alone right now." And while true emotional distress should always be taken seriously, manipulators often fabricate or exaggerate their struggles purely to regain control. This phase is a psychological chess game. They're testing your boundaries, waiting to see if your silence is real or just temporary. The moment you cave and respond, they will use your guilt as leverage, twisting the conversation to make it seem like you were the one who wronged them. But if you hold firm, if you refuse to engage with their guilt traps, something interesting happens. The manipulator starts realizing they've lost their emotional grip on you. And that's when the next phase begins, the silent treatment reversal. When guilt doesn't work and they realize they can't provoke a reaction, manipulators often resort to mirroring your silence, but with an entirely different purpose. This is what's known as the silent treatment reversal. Unlike your silence, which is a boundary-setting strategy, theirs is meant to punish you and regain dominance. At this stage, they suddenly stop reaching out. No calls, no messages, no attempts to provoke you. At first, this might feel like relief, but don't be fooled. This is a manipulation tactic designed to make you feel abandoned, rejected, or even guilty for going silent in the first place. They want you to wonder, did I overreact? Maybe I was too harsh. Should I be the one to reach out? This reversal is meant to make you chase them, which resets the power dynamic in their favor. By withdrawing, they're hoping you'll start to crave their attention and break your silence out of fear that you've lost them. This tactic works on people who struggle with self-doubt or emotional attachment. Manipulators know that many people will fold under the pressure of being ignored, especially if they have a history of feeling responsible for other people's emotions. If you're someone who's used to keeping the peace or avoiding conflict, the silent treatment reversal can feel emotionally torturous. But here's the truth. This is their last-ditch effort to regain control. The best way to beat it? Stay silent. The moment you show that their absence doesn't affect you, they lose all leverage. And that's when they move to their next and final tactic, the grand finale of manipulation, the desperate comeback. When all else fails, when anger, guilt, and silent treatment haven't worked, manipulators often pull out their last resort, the desperate comeback. This is where they suddenly flip the script, acting as if nothing ever happened or pretending to have had some kind of epiphany about your relationship. They'll send messages like, "Hey, I've been doing a lot of thinking and I realize I may have been wrong. I miss you. Can we talk? I know we've had our differences, but I don't want to lose you." This sudden shift isn't about genuine self-awareness. It's about testing if you're still vulnerable to their influence. After trying every trick in the book, they now want to see if kindness and nostalgia will pull you back in. This phase can be especially tricky because it plays on your hope that the manipulator has truly changed. You might feel tempted to believe them, to give them one more chance. After all, they sound so sincere now, don't they? But remember, manipulators are masters of emotional deception. If they were truly capable of change, they wouldn't need to manipulate in the first place. Their goal with the desperate comeback is to reset the cycle, to get you back into their control so they can start the manipulation all over again. They may act extra sweet, promise to do better, or even take responsibility for past behavior. But the moment they regain their hold on you, the old patterns return. If you truly want to break free, this is the moment of no return. If you stay silent now, you send the final message. You no longer have power over me. And once a manipulator knows they've lost their grip, their reaction can take one of two paths. They either disappear completely or they seek revenge. At this point, when the manipulator realizes their grip on you is slipping for good, they take one of two extreme paths. They either disappear entirely or attempt to seek revenge. The choice depends on what kind of manipulator you're dealing with. Path one, the disappearance. Some manipulators, when they see they've lost control, cut their losses and move on. They recognize that their tactics no longer work on you, and rather than waste time trying to break through your silence, they retreat. But don't mistake their silence for self-reflection or growth. They aren't changing. They're simply looking for their next target, someone easier to manipulate. If they disappear, stay strong and don't reach out. This is the cleanest break you'll get. But beware, just because they leave now doesn't mean they won't try to come back months or even years later. Manipulators often return when they believe you've forgotten how toxic they were. The best way to protect yourself? Stay no contact and never reopen that door. Path two, the revenge phase. Other manipulators take a much darker approach. Instead of accepting their loss, they become vindictive. If they can't control you, they may try to damage your reputation, turn mutual friends against you, or spread rumors. Some will gaslight others by rewriting history, making it seem like you were the problem all along. They might say things like, "I tried so hard with them, but they just shut me out for no reason. I gave them everything, and this is how they treat me. I don't know what happened. They just became distant and cold." If this happens, the most important thing is to stay calm and refuse to engage. Manipulators want you to react emotionally because if you lash out, they can paint you as the irrational one. The best response? Let their lies die in silence. Eventually, their smear campaign loses momentum because there's no fuel to keep it going. Whether they disappear or seek revenge, the outcome is the same. You win by staying silent. And once they realize they can no longer control you, they experience something they never expected: self-destruction. When a manipulator loses control over someone they once easily deceived, something begins to unravel inside them. Their tactics, once so effective, are now powerless. And for someone who thrives on control, this is more than just frustrating. It's a direct hit to their ego and sense of superiority. Without your reactions to feed on, they start to feel empty, powerless, and directionless. Manipulators don't function well without a supply, someone to control, gaslight, or emotionally drain. So when you go silent and refuse to re-engage, they are forced to face something they spend their entire lives avoiding: themselves. At this stage, they may go through an identity crisis. They might jump quickly into new relationships or friendships to fill the void you left. They could spiral into self-pity, convincing themselves that they were the victim all along. Some may even lash out at other people, trying to regain a sense of dominance wherever they can. In extreme cases, they will cycle through denial, rage, and self-loathing, all because their usual manipulative strategies failed. But here's the key difference between you and them. You grow from challenges. They don't. Instead of learning from this experience, most manipulators refuse to take responsibility. Instead, they tell themselves, they'll regret ignoring me one day. I'll find someone better who appreciates me. It's their loss, not mine. But deep down, they feel the sting of rejection because your silence proves they weren't as powerful as they thought. The self-destruction phase is not your concern. It's a battle they created for themselves. Your only job is to stay silent and stay gone. And when they finally accept that they've lost control, they reach their final stage, the last desperate attempt to return. Just when you think it's over, when you've moved on and found peace, they come back. It might be weeks, months, or even years later, but manipulators always return when they think you've let your guard down. At this stage, they've either exhausted other people who saw through their manipulation, or they've convinced themselves that enough time has passed for you to forgive and forget. They might test the waters with a casual message. Hey, it's been a while. Hope you're doing well. I just saw something that reminded me of you. I miss you. Do you ever think about me? Don't mistake this for sincerity. This is not about closure, love, or growth. It's a calculated move to see if they still have access to you. If you respond, even with a simple, hope you're well, too, it reopens the door for them to creep back in. Some manipulators take a more dramatic approach, claiming they've changed. I've done a lot of thinking, and I realize how I treated you wasn't fair. I've grown so much since we last talked. I just want to apologize properly. This is a trap. If they truly changed, they wouldn't need to convince you. They'd respect your silence. But manipulators don't grow, they adapt. They study what works and use it to their advantage. If kindness gets a response, they'll act sweet. If guilt works, they'll play the victim. If nostalgia is effective, they'll reminisce about the good time. The real test is what you do next. If you break your silence, you reset the cycle. But if you stay strong, if you ignore their last desperate attempt, you reach the final stage, true freedom. When you refuse to engage, when you ignore their last desperate attempt, something incredible happens. You break the cycle for good. The manipulator, once so confident in their ability to control you, is left with nothing. No reaction, no influence, no power. At this stage, you may feel a strange mix of emotions: relief, empowerment, and even grief. Grief not for the manipulator, but for the time you lost, the energy you wasted, and the person you had to become to escape their grip. And that's okay. Healing isn't just about moving on. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that were silenced. But here's what truly matters. You won, not by fighting, not by proving anything to them, but by choosing yourself. The most powerful response to manipulation is no response at all. Silence is the ultimate act of self-respect. It says, I am no longer available for your games. I don't need closure from someone who only wanted control. You no longer have access to me. Over time, you'll notice something. The manipulator becomes a distant memory. The more you focus on your own growth, the less they matter. Their mind games, their tricks, their attempts to pull you back in, it all fades. And what's left? Peace. Because when you go silent on a manipulator, you do more than just ignore them. You take back your life. And that is the kind of power they will never understand. So now I leave you with this. Who in your life needs to hear your silence? And more importantly, are you ready to set yourself free?